Oh, no kidding. All set, Mike? Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of August 7th. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council. The first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, can I pull HH6?
HH6. Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
And Mr. Clerk will hear that at the end. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve while pulling out HH6. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is the submission of minutes of previous meetings, items A1 and A2.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item C1. This is the second reading for adoption of ordinance 2019-09, and this is to extend a no parking area on Franklin Street and to designate a no parking area on Summer Street.
Motion to approve the second reading for adoption.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Lou, I do not recall ever a time that there was a twofer, as in two different no parking on the same ordinance. It's okay. I haven't seen this. Has this happened before?
It was just yes, it has happened in the past. It was just a coincidence that you had two separate requests that could be handled within the same portion of the town code.
Perfect. Okay. So we had a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the petition of Anthony Poisson, doing business as the Common Pub, to 421 Wood Street, requests council consideration to transfer the intoxicating beverage license. This is to call for a public hearing at your next meeting, August 28th.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item F1, and this is the petition of Jane Lavender for the Bristol Art Museum, request to use the town sidewalk to hold the annual Art al Fresco show on September 14th.
Motion to approve the request to use the town sidewalk.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
You also have the petition of John Vitkovich of 119 Hammock Avenue, Portsmouth, requests council consideration to prepare a resolution to the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority in support of installing superstructure lights on the Mount Hope Bridge to celebrate its 90th anniversary.
Is John here? Please. Welcome.
Thank you, and I want to say thank you again. We share a bridge. The Mount Hope Bridge is going to be 90 years old, October 24th. That's big. I don't like blue roadwork signs, and I don't like tolls, and I've had my issues with the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, but I have to say I'm very happy that the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, as far as I'm concerned, is doing a tremendous job maintaining the four structures now under their control. Seconet's beautiful. Newport, they're redecking. We know what's going on in Mount Hope. If you saw the article in the Times, 1980, I gave you folks copies, but 1980, these are the original placemats I bought at a yard sale for 25 cents. And the correction is, it's the Mount Hope Bridge, but it says Newport in the corner. I didn't particularly care for that. So I had them repaired, and you see them now, they say Portsmouth and Bristol. For 2 years, I've been asking Mr. Croft, for 2 years, I've been asking Mr. Offenberg, the engineer, can't we put the superstructure lights, the tower lights back on? There it is right there, and that's the incandescent bulbs. And, yeah, John, but, and then this year, Buddy said to me, John, we're really concentrating on the 50th for Newport. I said, Mount Hope is going to be 90. There's a difference here. Long story short, they did have a very big celebration in Newport. They spent quite a bit of money on the 50th. All I'm asking them to do is, and I believe it's in a fitting adornment to the Mount Hope Bridge, to put the LED lights back on. I'm in front of the Portsmouth Council next week, asking the Portsmouth Council. I believe that the Bristol Council and the Portsmouth Council and our legislators, and I've been in touch with all of them, and they're all supporting it, possibly will sway the Turnpike and Bridge Authority to consider putting those lights on for the 90th anniversary of the Mount Hope Bridge.
Questions?
That's a great idea.
For myself, I have absolutely no opposition to it. I did reach out to the executive director. You mentioned him, Buddy Croft.
Great guy.
And he is. He's actually, and I'm just going to take a moment for a 10-second commercial for him. Every time the veterans reach out to me, then I reach out to him for the flag on the bridge. He accommodates without question.
Yeah, that's...
And I know that every once in a while it's missing, but it's not for effort. It's more about wind and making sure that the flag is safe. So, but back to the...
And I just got to say, thank God for the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority right now, because they're doing a monumental job maintaining the 4 structures. And those 4 structures, trade, commerce, tourism, especially between Portsmouth and Bristol. Do you recall in 1985, I believe it was, they did shut the Mount Hope Bridge down for 3 months when they redecked it. And boy, did that create some problems on Route 195 and 24.
Yes, bridge problems are a thing around here. Yes, sir.
Yes. So, again, I'd love to see the superstructure lights reinstalled, the LEDs. I did offer 2 years ago that I would do a fundraiser to start raising the money if they went. But no, we can do it, but it hasn't been done yet. So I just feel that this is a fitting tribute to the 90 years of service of the Mount Hope Bridge. And they were there before. 1975 or 78, I can't get it straight, a barge hit the Portsmouth side and tore the lights off. So Turnpike and Bridge took the other side off, and we just left the string. 1989, 1990, they put the new LED lights up, and they didn't put the tower lights.
So for myself, I, again, have absolutely no opposition to it. I would be happy to support if the Bridge Authority, Bridge and Turnpike Authority can find a way to, A, engineer it, and paying for it. I would love to see it there for myself.
Thank you very much.
Can I just make a motion that we
Of course.
send a letter to the Bridge and Turnpike Authority requesting that we turn those lights on for at least 4 or 5 days to celebrate the 90th anniversary of the bridge. I'm sure the big event they want to have is going to be the 100th anniversary, which I
10 more years.
hope I'm around to see that.
We'll all hold hands and walk across it.
It's a low bar to reach there, Mary. I hope you're around in 10 years, jeepers.
So, but yeah, I think this is a great idea.
Thank you.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second for this.
Discussion.
Tony's just had a quick question. You said the superstructure lights, those are LEDs or not LEDs?
They are. They will be. They'll match the ones that they have. We also saw 4th of July. What they did, I think Bristol was red and Portsmouth was blue, and the white in the middle. It looked great.
So if I may, I'm going to
do.
stop real quick. So there is nothing there right now. So
That is
just for
correct.
clarity. So this is to put lights that don't currently exist.
That is correct.
Great. And there's no cost to the town. So
None.
And it looks like the switch will be turned on, October 24th?
If they could do it, that'd be great. If it's
Okay.
November 24th, it's
great.
a fitting tribute to the 90 years of service of that bridge.
We're in that 90th year, so
Right.
cool.
And
Great.
again, if
Thank
you fly out of Green, it's kind of hard to say, wait a minute, which one's the Mount Hope Bridge, which one's the Newport Bridge, because the lights are the same.
I don't have that problem, sir, but I do know which ones are which.
But
So.
putting the superstructure lights on it will just delineate it better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to support the resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item G1A, and this is the Rogers Free Library Board of Trustees. You have recommendation from the Board of Trustees themselves, which is a group that is responsible for making recommendations for new members for the appointment of Jacqueline Katz.
What's this council's pleasure?
I have a question. We have 2 items here, I believe. Am I correct? One to accept a resignation, and the other one an appointment. Correct? Can we embed that into one?
You can certainly group that together, yes.
Okay. So I make a motion to accept with regret the resignation of Mr. Cinta Matroni and recommend the appointment of Ms. Jacqueline Katz.
Second the motion?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
She's a great addition.
And she has hats. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. But for those of you who don't, because that's a very strange comment to make,
Got to read the Phoenix.
yes, you got to read the Phoenix, but children's books and children's reading hour and a myriad of other things, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So great job. So
Good
we have a
luck.
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Congrats.
The next item is item G1B, and this is correspondence from the chairman of the Christmas Festival Committee recommending Wendy Quinn for appointment.
Make a motion to appoint Miss Wendy Quinn to the Christmas Festival
Second.
Committee. Excuse me.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, and the council will recall that it did ask me to do some research for its honorable body regarding this particular matter. You had a vacancy on the Harbour Commission, and you have two alternates. The first alternate is not interested in becoming a full member, but rather the second alternate is. Stephen Gennario has requested appointment to full member.
I'll make a motion to appoint Stephen Gennario as a full member of the Harbour Commission. A letter of thanks to Scott Badiris, and I guess we would go to advertise for the second alternate position, correct?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
The only thing I will point out is that what the council has traditionally done has been to look at those who serve on the advisory committee, which is sort of, this is kind of a commission that has a double farm team.
Right.
So if you would like, we can ask the persons currently serving on the advisory committee if they're interested.
I would
in
very much
appointment.
like that, yes.
And then if one of those is, then we would choose to advertise for wherever the final vacancy is.
Anybody have objection to that? I think that's perfect.
That's fine.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next item is...
Oh, no, Lou, I'm sorry. This is the part where I say thank you. I have to do this every time, and I know it sounds old, but every Christmas you say Merry Christmas, and that never gets old. So at the end of this time, when we appoint and reappoint, I say thank you. This town, particularly the council in this town, very much appreciate the efforts that the public gives back. It's not a small deal. Sometimes we have contentious issues. Sometimes you're in front of the public that you are part of, and you have to make difficult decisions, and that's not easy. And we appreciate it, we recognize it, and we say thank you. Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item I-1, and this, the council will recall a previous conversation regarding the tangible tax, a possibility of a tangible tax exemption for small businesses. Kendall Reese of 473 Papa Squash Road requests a follow-up from the council regarding the same.
So I thought this was an absolute timely request. I think it's perfect. I know, Chris, you're going to share some information in regards to that. If I may, I'm just going to preface this and say that both Julie Gosher, our town treasurer, and Michelle, our tax assessor, are not here this evening, and they are critical people to weigh in on this. Obviously, the administrator is too. But, Chris, if you could share some information, I think it would feel like it would be appropriate at the end of our discussion to potentially continue this to the next meeting, depending on what this council feels. And ask for some information at this one, so the next one we are more prepared to answer those questions. Chris? And Mr. Administrator, I don't know if you wanted to go first.
Chris worked with our tax assessor, and we did make some headway with looking at the tangibles, and he's prepared to state what took place since our last September meeting regarding tangibles. Chris, you want to talk about the...
Yeah. Good evening. Just a little bit of a refresher. I know that this was a conversation that was brought up in front of the previous town council last September. Since the fall, there's been a couple of notable changes that have happened. So first, we implemented an online form reporting. So with that, it cut down the reporting requirements in half, made it so that you could submit electronically. The notary requirement was eliminated, so it really streamlined the process overall for on our end as well as the business's end. Second, the town has undergone a full revaluation. And part of that was a tangible tax audit. So I know we were looking at some figures last year. So
in and around the 750,000 area, if my memory's correct, right?
Yes.
Previously.
So previously it was 750,000. Based on the new information that we got after the audit, it looks like that number is less, considerably less than it was before. So given that there is new data, given that we are in a new fiscal year and we do have a new tax rate, I would recommend that when our tax assessor and our treasurer are here, we can provide you guys a new analysis so that we can look at what that would cost for an exemption. And
I would like us to see, and I know this was part of the dialogue at that meeting about a year ago or so, is to consider dollars exclusion, so 25,000, 30,000. I don't know what the number is, but I certainly would like, Mr. Administrator, too, is to see us look at those numbers and say, how do we kind of get rid of those smaller businesses that are doing this and going through all these steps for a lot of work and very little taxes, it seems like. But it would also be, in my opinion, appropriate to look at this across the board, because we couldn't just do it for small business. My point is, everybody gets a $25,000 or a $30,000 pass, if you will. So
yeah, so similar to what we did last year, we'd be happy to provide a couple of different tiers that you can take a look at to see how many businesses would be impacted and what that change would be.
Chris, thanks for this update. The biggest thing for me would be knowing where we're going to make up that revenue. I mean, if we're going to reduce on the businesses, the money has to come from somewhere or some account or something. So understanding that would be a big portion for me to understand where we're going at. If we're going to put it on the taxpayers, that's fine. We need to understand that.
Well put, Tim.
Yep.
So, I know that we talked about it a little bit last discussion, but as part of the analysis, we can also talk about potential funding sources as well and where we can recoup some of that.
Because it's got to come from somewhere.
Please.
Oh, okay. I thought Mary was gone. Excuse me. So to understand, this is an exemption, an elimination of the tangible tax. Am I correct on that?
At this point, it's nothing. It was It was to bring it back up. The proposal was made a while ago to potentially remove it, but then a lot of the dialogue included how do we make up, as Tim has already pointed out, the money's got to come from someplace, and if it's not this, it's coming from someplace else. One of the largest challenges, in my recollection, please correct me, anybody, if you disagree, but it was all of the steps to get to, on these small businesses, a lot of steps for us, for them, and not much revenue from the taxes. So it was a lot of effort for a little return. That was for myself at least, looking at an exemption of a dollar figure. And I don't know what that actually means at the end of the day, but not to remove it completely was not my intention, unless there was another, as Chris pointed out, another funding source, because it's, as Tim pointed out, it's got to come from someplace. So.
Because my understanding is the tangible tax actually is dictated by the state law. So we certainly could not get rid of it altogether, which I understand, the dynamics here.
Sure.
I mean, possibly if we do go forward and pending whatever the cap is that we agreed to, possibly some business would be eliminated. I mean, they would no longer would have to pay if we go forward with this.
Right. So whatever decision the council decides to make, it would have to go through the state and get approved by the state legislature. In regards to the threshold that's ultimately decided on, I know that there are some additional requirements for reporting, even if they're completely exempt. So that information I can absolutely put together for you so you guys can make the best
And Chris
decision.
actually just brought up a really good point, is that just because there could be an exemption, or I like your word threshold, it doesn't mean that paperwork still wouldn't be necessary. And obviously there's a dollar savings to a small business, but is the efforts, I don't know, is it commensurate? I don't know. But we don't know what we don't know right now. So I know we would all like some more information. And again, I thought it was a perfect time to talk about it. So.
I think as part of, I'm sorry, did you need
No.
Okay. I think as part of, or to add on to what Councilman Sweeney was saying, was that I think it would be good for our purposes, too, to kind of see what some of the other towns are doing in terms of their exemptions and everything like that. So just to get a sense of who we're competing against and everything like that in terms of creating that small business environment and everything.
Absolutely. So we did a preliminary report last year to that effect. We can see if any of the towns have changed their exemption statuses, if they've revised them in any way, and that would be part of the discussion as well, for sure.
Mr. Administrator, did you want to share something?
Just maybe some direction on where we can go and report back to the council next
Great, thank you.
meeting. The last report we did back in August of 2018, there were 501 businesses with less than 25,000 in assessments. So that was that added up to $66,999 in revenue for us. So that was 500 businesses that went through the paperwork, submitted their inventory and so forth, and it was approximately $67,000 in revenues. So what we'll try to do for the next council meeting, we'll do the breakdown again with all the various communities and where the tangibles are, and we'll, with this new revaluation, the numbers may have changed. So it's a perfect time, as you said, that we come back with some fresh data, and we'll break it down into tiers.
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Mary?
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay.
Just wanted to-
Is there any other dialogue?
Nope.
So it would seem that we would need a motion to continue this to the next meeting. I'm so sorry. Hi.
It's Ms. Reese.
Well, hello.
Would you mind if I...
Of course. No, come on up. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you all very much for looking into this and sort of taking this request so earnestly. I think it's a really interesting and good thing for Bristol to be thinking about. I do have just a few things that I wanted to share with you that might help sort of your thought processes in the discussion. So creating a tangible tax, just from the business person's perspective, I'm a small business owner. I have a gallery and studio space up on Wood Street. I'm a one-woman operation. I have a dog, but he doesn't do much. But in terms of sort of encouraging entrepreneurs and encouraging people to think about Bristol as a place to either locate their businesses or potentially relocate their businesses, I think this is a really good way to attract people into that. Currently, there are several other municipalities, and this is current data. I called all of our municipalities in the state of Rhode Island within the last week. So I can tell you that Charlestown has a $10,000 exemption, $10,000 exemption that's in place. East Providence has $5,000 currently in place. Narragansett has $35,000 currently in place. And I had the best conversation with Anthony Davey, who's the tax assessor in East Greenwich. He's awesome, very, very willing to have conversations, and sort of just went through this process. So he's a great resource for us. They now have the ability to give up to $35,000 a year off, which they will enact for the next fiscal year. So the process, like Chris mentioned, has to go up through the state legislature. In the case of East Greenwich, what happened with them was they added it onto another bill. They piggybacked it onto a bill that they were already submitting that was to split their tax rates. So, Tim, when you bring up the point of sort of where do we generate that revenue from, they're able to split their residential and commercial tax rates so that they can think about making these sort of minuscule changes perhaps within the tax rate for commercial businesses or something versus the residents having to take that on. And so they piggybacked the exemption on that bill. And this was something, I guess, that Providence and Gloucester do as they split their rates, so it's not something that's sort of unknown. East Greenwich had already submitted their budget, and so this is something that now they have the capacity to do, and they will enact that exemption, the $35,000 off of tangible tax, for next year. At that time that they do that, of course, they're going to consider that commercial rate, and they're going to look at sort of making the budget even out, right? So there are ways of doing this that are sort of creative, and maybe ways that we can, talk with folks that just went through the process that might be helpful. So there's two sort of ways that tangible tax can be enacted. One is that a municipality can exempt up to a certain amount. So say this is scenario one. The exemption is set at $5,000, arbitrary number. People who have tangible goods within their business that fall underneath that threshold don't have to don't have to pay, right? But say you have $5,001 worth of goods in your business, then you are responsible for that. The second scenario, the second option, is if the exemption, again, is set at $5,000, each and every business within the municipality gets up to $5,000 off of their tangible assets, and then whatever else they have on top of that, they pay for. So there's kind of two ways of looking at that, which one may be more generous than the other. I don't know. Again, I think it's about crunching the numbers and figuring that out, but just to kind of put that in the conversations that you might have. Creating this exemption is in line with other commercial tax laws that have been abolished, including the inventory tax that was done away with, and including a manufacturing tax as well. I'm lucky enough to have gotten a loan through Commerce RI, so I have a good relationship and have kept in touch with many of those folks, including Stephen Pryor, who's our Secretary of Commerce for the state. And as I understand it, again, this has to go up through the legislature, who looks at these things, it sounds like once a year. I think it's in June, from what Stephen was saying to me. So that gives us 10 months, I think, if I do my math right, which I'm not very good at, and that's why I hire an accountant to help me with the tangible tax form, and that's part of why this is something that ends up taking more time and effort than maybe it would need to. But that gives us 10 months till June to really come up with a creative way to look at this, put a bill forth to the state to then consider. And again, I think as a stream of revenue for the town, it seems like it's a fairly small amount that we could probably figure out other ways to make up. Bigger businesses that are here, Stop and Shop, National Grid, these sort of bigger companies are, of course it makes sense to keep them on board with paying tangibles, but in terms of small businesses, the issues and sort of things that have come up to me just with talking with other business people in town is we miss out on a lot of small businesses because a lot of people are based in their homes. They have home businesses. They might not even be reporting the tangible tax. So there's a whole sort of other group of people that might not even be either aware that they need to be paying this, or they might not be reporting. So it seems sort of inequitable in a few different ways. So.
Do you share the information that it sounds like you've done some great research
Happy
already?
to.
If you maybe share it with the administrator and Chris?
Definitely.
And that would help us. Again, it sounds like you did some great research there.
Happy to share it. Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like, to us, it sounds like some great opportunities to look at what we can do to adjust if appropriate, and be a little bit maybe more flexible. And some of your ideas sound like they have a lot of merit. Mr. Administrator?
Thank you.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thanks.
Mary, of course.
I just had a quick question. Well, not necessarily for you, but just, Chris, when you go to do the review of what the other communities are doing, I think it would be important to get the information. When Kendall was talking about like the two options, I was thinking when she said the 5,001, I was thinking, okay, they're going to just get taxed on that $1. So, can you find out if it's like just the exemption, and if you are lower, if you're above that, you pay and everything? Yes. Or you just pay the difference?
Yeah, I think last year's figures, that Stephen mentioned before, applied to all businesses, so all businesses would have received that benefit up to, for example, the $25,000 threshold.
So they would have been paying like just on the additional?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what your research had found last year, like the other communities are doing, or had you not asked that question?
So I could look back at the language. I don't have that information in front of me, but I'll make sure that...
If you're going to double check with that, could you just check that part out as
Absolutely.
well? Please?
Chris did do that last year. I'm counting 5 communities that had some type of tangible exemption. That was in 2018.
Only 5?
So there was 5. Another interesting thing, and I remember talking about this, we were in the lower 6th or 7th in tax rate. Bristol's tax rate was $14.92, and this is for an example. East Greenwich was $23.66. And I only say this because it is good to do business here. We have taxes are always too high, but we have some of the.
We're the bottom third.
We're in the bottom.
But we're the top
at least.
third.
Yeah, I would have to count right now. I remember last fall I reported this. I think we're number 6th or 7th lowest. Some of them were nearly doubled Bristol's rates, including East Greenwich, $23.66.
Thank you for making that point, because I think we often forget how how low it is and how much we have, that doesn't mean that we can't look at this. And in fact, I loved your earlier point, 501 business, less than $5,000. I thought that was a really, really great point. So maybe the numbers that I was suggesting earlier were a bit too lofty, but absolutely, I think we're all willing to look at everything. But that was a really good point about how low our taxes are. Thank you for doing that.
I don't want to lose what we're hearing here is the message that paperwork for the sake of doing paperwork with little return may not be worth our while to.
Thank you.
Ask those businesses to, put that much effort into it for very little return. But where that number is, we'll have to break it down again, and we'll report next meeting.
And I think you bring up a good point, too, is also the amount of product hours we put in for employees, too. If you start clocking in how much paperwork is being done per an hour for that employee as well to process all that stuff. And believe me, I don't know the whole full process, but I bet you start counting that in as well. You wonder if it's at all worth it,
So, we have a motion and a second to continue this with recommendations to come back in front of the council, including all this dialogue. Is there any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item I2, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is a draft Bristol County Water Authority payment in lieu of taxes agreement for council consideration.
Mr. Chairman, just point of clarification, as I was going through it, the agreement where it says term of pilot, the phase-out, am I reading that correct, those numbers for 2020, 2021, and 2022, then 2023, it would phase out completely. Is that correct?
That's right.
That is correct.
And this is on part number 3 there on page 4. It says public fire protection charges for 20-year term. Why was 20-year term selected, not a longer term? Is there a reason for that? Because I thought it would be in perpetuity, not necessarily, right? That we agreed that.
No, it was just that I don't recall. I believe it was a review time, and it was the last agreement.
It was review time. The last agreement was 20 years. The negotiators probably said, let's do another 20, see where we're at a generation from now. And my office did review that agreement. We did make some suggested revisions, but otherwise, from a policy point of view, if you're good with it, we're good for it from a legal point of view.
So not commentary, but clarity on this for the public is that what we're looking at, a payment in lieu of taxes, is what this is called. That currently, the town pays per hydrant. So we give a check to BCWA, and then BCWA gives a check to us. This is to make that go away, simply put. And it is not even at the end of the day. We, the town, end up paying a little bit more, but the fees for the hydrant go away, and this back and forth with dollars also goes away. And it was also to make sure that the hydrant fees hadn't been adjusted in a while, and it was believed that those were due for, actually not, they would have been adjusted up. So even though we will be, it won't be an even, as in the sense of the town will be paying a little bit more than what we do right now when everything goes away. Ultimately, I believe it's beneficial to the community. And apparently everybody agrees that was involved in this. What's my colleagues think?
I just have a quick question, and I would be very curious to understand what the formula is that they're determining what they owe us as far as it goes. As part of the agreement, it says the average amount of real estate property taxes and franchise fees, but they use some sort of formula to approximate the average amount. So I'm not totally sure, and I'm not expecting anybody to know. I don't know if anybody here can answer that, but who I can get that answer from. I'd just be interested to know.
I think I can help briefly. I'm not an expert, but I know there's a formula that uses the water usage. There's a table they use, Bristol, Warren, and Barrington, and so it depends on consumption of water. That's where they figure it out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
What other questions or comments?
Make a motion.
Yes, please. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you very much.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item I3, and this is from the Economic Development Coordinator requesting support of the Black Ships Festival for this year.
Hello again.
I feel like you've been here for a bit. Go ahead.
A little
please.
bit.
No, all right, okay.
So last year, I was before the council requesting funding for support for the Black Ships Festival. Last year's festival was the pilot year that they were here in town. Previously, this festival was in Newport for 34 years. They came here last year. The festival was a pretty good success. We had over $100,000 of economic impact that happened in our downtown over that weekend of the festival.
Chris, can I stop you and say pretty good and $100,000 over the weekend they seem to be juxtaposed.
We did very good.
Okay.
It was very good. We were
Thank you.
very satisfied. The people who attended the festival were really excited that it was here in Bristol, for the first time, and the organizers of the event really liked working with us as a partner. So they're here now for the second year in a row. We are sponsoring the festival, but our commitment level, we're requesting an additional $2,000 through council contingency. So the funding that I'm requesting for you today is going to be for expenses for the public events that are going to be taking place over this upcoming weekend's festivities. So the expenses that are going to be incurred are reimbursable, so the town will be receiving invoices, and we'll know what things are this funding will be spent on, in support of the public.
So we'll be
activities.
vetting it out before we write a check. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you are asking for $2,000?
That's correct.
Remind this council what you asked for last year.
$2,500.
Why a difference?
So-
I'm happy, but why a difference?
So this year we were able to provide support through other means. So I know we're working with our police department, with the color guard and police detail on the day of the festival, so people who are walking down at Independence Park, it'll help with crossing guards. I know our Department of Public Works and Parks and Recreation is helping with trash collection this year, where we're not having to source that out and reimburse those expenses.
So these funds would, if this council believed it's appropriate, come from our contingency, and our contingency is in essence full because we've started a new fiscal year. The money is there to do it. I personally think this is a wonderful thing to support. I was joking earlier about talking about the bridge and all the things that are going on this year and next year. I think this is one way to continue to support opportunity and activity in the town. So.
Can I just, first,
Please.
I guess I could just start with a motion to approve the funding from council contingency, but then I have a question for
Which
you
clearly
afterwards.
tells us where you're coming from. Is there a second?
I'll second that. I'll second it.
Discussion?
I just had a couple of questions. So this year, it is this weekend, and it's the same weekend as our Harbour Festival, right?
That's correct.
And how are you going to be, moving people between the two? Are you going to have like signs down, at Rockwell in this area for go down to Independence Park or wherever the events are going to take place? I mean, like, how are people going to know both things are going on? If they, that's one thing.
Yeah.
And then I think I saw in the invitation that the opening ceremony is at Rockwell Park. Am I correct?
That's correct. So this year, the organizers for the Black Ships Festival, as well as Greg Marsili and his committee that puts on Harbour Fest, we're trying to find cost savings together. So, knowing that Greg and his team are going to be setting up for Harbour Festival for that next day, we were able to find some cost savings there as well, so that they could utilize his facilities for the Maritime Center, as well as some of the tables and whatnot that he has there on site. So in addition to co-marketing, we've been doing social media pushes online, promoting both events. The fact that we have the ferry that's right in between both locations where the activities are taking place, for people who are riding the ferry here into town, they're right in the center of the action.
That these two events are going on, and both, like this event this way and this event that way, and how are, is somebody going to be there to hand out some flyers or?
Certainly. So I can speak with Greg and see. I know that he does have signage that he's posted throughout the town in various locations. The Black Ships Festival has done the same thing. I know here a couple weeks ago they put up banner requests. I know that there's signage in the storefronts downtown for both events. So in addition to that, I can absolutely just put some information out as well, letting people know what's going to be going on downtown this weekend.
Just some temporary...
It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world that they go to both, too,
No,
right?
I think, no, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that'd be
Yeah.
good. We want to make
Yeah.
sure people know that they can go to both while they're here, you know.
I think it's great.
That's what I wanted. That's what my point is, yeah.
And actually, and I think another great point to make is that last year this was in July, so this has already been moved deeper into the year, which is wonderful to spread out events. But Mary brings up a really good point: is that when 2020 comes around, let's see if we can stay away from anything that is town related to have as much going on in town and as many weekends as possible. So. But again, I think it's great that it moved into August. I'm not complaining. So if we could continue to do that, would be great. Is there any other discussion?
Just that I think it's great. I think it keeps the town alive and keeps another reason to come to Bristol. I just wanted to know, Chris, do you foresee this being a fixed expense year after year? Only because I'm wondering, I just asked thinking to my colleagues, maybe we should move this into the budget under, what's that, last night events and all that stuff.
Civic events.
Yeah, and I was just curious if you foresee
and tourism, sure.
You foresee this to being a fixed expense moving on.
So certainly I know this year, like I said before, we're trying to provide, value to them through our police details, trash collection.
Yep.
In terms of the amount, certainly we can look back next year and provide a recommendation. If we can keep them here in town and as partners, certainly they provide a value to community to, like you said, have people come downtown.
Right.
Mr. Administrator?
Yeah, this is really like a 2 or 3. When we talked about it last year, this was like a 2 or 3 year commitment, almost like a seed funding to get them going, and hopefully grow it. It's actually $4,000 with this $2,000 in the tourism line through community development, and then the $2,000 from the council contingency. So it's really a $4,000 commitment. Plus some in-kind contributions with police details to help. But the goal would be, and Chris works with the Black Ships group quite often, the goal is to get them to grow their festival and wean off town funds.
To get rid of the seed money, in essence.
Right.
Yeah, they can do similar to what happened with the 4th of July concerts. They had many vendors there. So hopefully through sponsorships and vendors and getting the word out that Black Ships are here in Bristol, it'll be more profitable for them. It's a non-profit, but
And beneficial towards the town, right?
Thank you.
So you're welcome. I knew where you were going.
And it is reducing. Seems like year after year. It was 2,500 last year. We're coming down. We're kind of...
Yeah, I don't see this. My goal is that this is not a reoccurring expense for us, and then they're up on their own. But I think, especially as the chairman stated, for next year, I think it's real important that they're successful.
Thank you.
Well, I think this is great. It's great to know that we have so many people coming into Bristol for this event, and so congratulations on continuing to grow this. And I think kind of the benefit of having this into the budget, or during the regular budget time, is that you'll be able to provide a little bit more data about the economic impact and everything like that. And so I think that'll help us a little bit more, too, with maybe you'll need more money for this. And so if we can... have a little bit more of that information maybe next year during the budget time, I think that would help us out a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one point to that is this past year we were fortunate enough to get a grant for an economic impact study. I know that was approximately $5,000 that we were able to fund through a grant. Certainly if this continues here in town, I would look to do something similar to that in a few years, as Steve mentioned, people find out that the festival's here in town and they're looking to grow. So,
Great.
So, Chris, when is the festival?
Thanks for asking. So, opening ceremony is this Friday, 10 o'clock at Rockwell Park. It's going to be about an hour service, and there will be a small speaking program. The Arts and Crafts Festival is Saturday from 10 to 3:30 at Independence Park. So,
Chris, how much does it cost to show up on Friday and Saturday?
free.
Okay, thank you. That was what I wanted to make sure got out there. So we have a motion and a second to approve the $2,000 out of council contingency. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item I-4, and this is from the administrator regarding a proposed lease with Bristol Theatre Company.
Mr. Administrator?
So the 5-year lease with Bristol Theatre Company at Reynolds School is will be up within the next 9 or 12 months. They did come to me. They applied for a grant with the Champlin Foundation to do permanent lighting and sound improvements. And in order to apply for the grant, they have to have a long-term commitment, longer than what they currently had. So we I met with Marie Natman, the director of Bristol Theatre Group, and essentially we came up with a new lease, and we outlined what rooms. It's 4 classrooms, and they have use of the gym and balcony, which they call the theater. But in this lease, there is a provision that in the event that the town needed the theater for a town meeting, they would try to make arrangements for us, reasonable accommodations for us. So the lease went up a little bit, about $50 a month, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark. But again, we put this together quickly to the council. This is a draft. That this is what the financial terms would be. So it would be...
Is it 18 cents or 19 cents?
It should be 19 cents.
Because it's written one way and it's written it's spelled out as 18 cents and it's written as 19.
Just before the
And
19.
in 2, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be 19 cents.
So the
Okay.
book should read
Yes.
19.
19 cents, $6,840 a year. And then after the second year, there's a 2% escalator per year. This is for 5 years. And the last thing I'd like to, and again, this is draft, but the financial terms, this is where the financial terms are and the length of the lease. Blackstone Properties, the company in which we retained, we signed the agreement with them on the 26th of July. They're going to put it in their format. Their format has some additional requirements as far as insurance and more legal particulars, and I believe the solicitor's office had looked at that. But what I think was important now is that the council sees that this would be a 5-year commitment, and there's an option to extend, I believe, for 3 years, 3 more years. And those are the amounts. So it's about approximately 19 cents per square foot per month for 3,000 square feet, approximately 3,000 square feet, and that's 4 classrooms, in use of the gymnasium.
A point of clarity, the last lease, if my recollection is correct, had one of the items was that if the town needed the building back, whether it was for, who knows, it was a school, if it was a school again, something like that. Is that in this new lease? And if not, I certainly would want to have that in. I don't believe it's going to happen, but certainly want to make sure that was in there.
That is in the lease.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing I'd want to say is that I think the Bristol Theatre Company is doing a great job, and I think it's an asset, and I think it helps with economic development. I also, I'm going to steal some words from someone else, but some kids aren't football players. Some kids aren't baseball players. Some kids aren't soccer players. And everybody needs a place to shine. And there's a lot of kids here that shine and would not have an opportunity without this facility. So I think not only does it value, there's massive value to those kids, but I think there's economic value to the town. And I love, and I'm going to quote from you, Steve, is that using the schools for kids. I love it. So...
Just had a question. Are we getting paid by the quarter, monthly? What's the payment schedule?
It'd be monthly.
They're going to pay monthly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could I suggest that if the motion's going to be to approve the administrator to execute the lease subject to the solicitor's review? Because this is a draft.
So I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Yes, I do.
Please.
Just very quickly, on this here, I mean, I'm in full agreement with the details that are worked out here. However, just a question, on the extension of the 3 years, will a 2% be, or will it be capped at the amount at the $72.60?
We wrote in there that there is an option to extend and the financial terms would be negotiated at that time.
Got it. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I would also. I'd also just like to comment on the theater group. This is clearly, anyone knows that this is well below market rate.
Yes.
However, this is a nonprofit and a service to adults and mainly children. And I believe it's a good use for the building, and we do, through recreation, through our school budget, we do dedicate resources and funds for programming to develop youth and so forth. So I think this is another avenue that we can do that, and they do a terrific job. They've always been cooperative since I've been here. In fact, they even give us their ledger and their balance sheets, so we know they're making ends meet to pay the bills, and they're hoping that this grant through the Champlain Foundation will improve their operations and their outreach. So I think it's an excellent program, and they're reaching many of our youth. And the last thing I like to say, it's a good night out. You go out to dinner and then go see a show. And Kristen and I did go see Tommy's Who last fall, and I thought I could have been on Broadway. It was that good. Yeah,
that's great.
They had a pit band.
But you had parking.
Really But I just wanted to vouch for the group that they are doing really good work.
Thank you.
And I think
Sounds like Fifth Avenue.
Yeah, Fifth Avenue. Yeah. I think the administrator's remarks and the chairman's remarks were very well stated. I believe the Tommy Show has actually been nominated for some awards here in Bristol. Not in Bristol, but in the state of Rhode Island. So I think we have something to be very proud about over here. And they just had a show this last weekend, I believe, as well, and it was sold out. And so it's really great to have art and theater in this town. My wife's a musical theater professor, and so we go to all the shows. And so it's really important that that's the kind of stuff that's going on here, I think, in our town. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is J1. This is bid number 913. It's for compost screener. You have one bid received from Rock and Recycling Equipment, LLC of Sutton, Massachusetts, in the amount of $143,750.
Just had a question.
Good, because I was going to ask what a heck a compost screener is for 150.
Yeah.
Enlighten us.
Yes. Thank you.
If I may, is this on?
Certainly.
It's on.
The material that is brought in by landscapers and homeowners and residents, it comes in bulk. It's tree branches, lawn clippings. So we do use a tub grinder to chip it down, and then we run it through our screener. The current one we have now is aged, has broken down. It's at the end of its useful life. At the moment, with the smallest we can screen is 3/4 inch size. What this new one will do, of course, will not only replace it, but will allow us to screen down to 1/2 inch size, which will make it more desirable as a material, both the mulch and our biosolid compost. We were expecting the price to come in the range of $150,000. It was slightly lower.
So that's bad negotiating, because the part that I was going to say was we can actually negotiate because there was only one, right? So, and I'm giving you a hard time, but I think honestly that's great. It's a great use of, not that we want to spend extra money, but if it's at the end of its life.
Yeah.
Can we get anything for the The one we currently have?
Yeah.
We
I mean,
have
I'm familiar with the one that's there right now.
So we currently have been selling some equipment on gov deals. We've been putting our old equipment, and we have generated some funds. We certainly can see, and it will be something to look into.
Right, okay, good, thank you.
What's this council's pleasure?
I just have another question for Jose. How many years does one of these pieces of equipment last?
With proper maintenance, 20-plus years.
Okay.
And we have had some equipment that have lasted that long. We just sold one of the Western Stars, a 1987 dump truck from 87. We had maintained it on the road, but we couldn't do it any longer.
Wow.
What's this council's pleasure?
Make a motion to refer this to the town administrator to act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is item K1, and this is the periodic report provided by the Barrington Director of the Bristol County Water Authority, Mr. Alan Klepper.
Motion to receive and file.
Second with some discussion, Mr.
There's a
Chairman.
motion and a second. Discussion?
I just, obviously, we don't have anybody here from the directors, but if somebody can, at the second to the last paragraph, there says, directors awarded the permanent pavement contract to International Paving. I'm just a little confused about that permanent pavement, I should say. I mean, it seems like, did they ever going to rebid this at some point in time, you know?
So it would seem maybe we could reach out through to our directors and just get clarity on that particular point?
Permanent pavement means binder plus the permanent layer. I think it means permanent.
Also referring to the pavement itself,
Yeah,
but not to the length of the contract.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. At first, when I read it through it quickly, I'm going, this just doesn't jive, you know?
It's a lifetime appointment, Tony.
Yes.
It's a lifetime appointment.
That's,
Oh, it's common in Rhode Island.
All right, so we had a motion and a second. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Good, okay. So we had a motion and a second to accept. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. HH6.
HH6?
Yes.
And this is from the Administrator to Coastal Resources regarding a Bristol Harbor as a destination harbor.
Yeah, should I go ahead, Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to pull this because, and I think we've gone through this before with the mooring numbers and the dock numbers and everything like that, but I still thought it was worth just going over this one more time because I just had a quick question about something, and maybe the administrator can help me, or maybe this is even a question for Chris. But you'll notice that there's just been significant growth in the amount of revenues that are coming in for docks and mooring. So if you look from like 2014, we go from $2,000 that year to almost double in 2015. 2016, it's 4 times what it was in 2014, and it continues to grow and grow and grow. And then you'll see like the empirical, I mean, from an empirical standpoint, you see the same thing that's going on over here with the mooring revenues, and it suggested to me that, you know, part of that is, you know, is that associated with the fact that we have the Maritime Center now online and everything like that, or is it just the growth in the number of moorings that we have? Or maybe it's a combination of both.
I don't know about the moorings. That's an answer. Yeah. That's a question for Greg. I don't have an answer. I will say that the transient, from what Greg is telling us, our transient visitors are increasing exponentially, and interesting enough, September is the busiest month. And the whole reason for this redesignation and main reason why we asked for it, we don't need vehicle parking spaces for transient slips. So that's why we asked for a redesignation to a destination harbor. If we're a destination harbor, that means people are coming here and visiting the harbor by boat, not by car. So we won't need parking spaces for those transient slips that we're putting in. Meaning the visiting slips, the available spaces on the docks for boats that are coming in.
I really like the ring of that destination harbor. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Is that a unique designation, or are you a lot of other harbors around Rhode Island the same thing, or is there only a few others? Or
No, there are a few others.
yeah, okay.
But only a few.
There's a few, but we like ours.
That's a good response.
Yeah,
Well, I guess
it's a good ring to it.
the other question that kind of came to my mind as I was looking at this was, I wasn't sure the extent to which we're going through the trouble of announcing or getting the word out that, you know, we have this maritime center and everything like that. So it could be possible that these numbers could grow even more, but maybe we are getting the word out about that. So.
I think part of it is that the lack of accommodations was a huge. It's a big deal. Another thing is this council approved a few years ago larger size moorings for transient. So not all of them are large size, but to accommodate a larger boat. As the administrator pointed out, Greg has done a great job, and his staff have doing a great job of renting out the transient slip space. And in fact, this is actually apropos to a conversation that we're going to have very shortly. As if you all recall, we're going to take a look at the mooring rates and slip rates for next year. That would have to do with the marine expansion. So all of this it's a kind of a perfect way to segue into that, which is going to come very quickly, to have that open dialogue about what we're going to look at next year. And as you said, those numbers are going to continue to grow because there will be that much more access. So it's great.
Mr. Chairman, he brings up a really good point, makes some good points, but also, Councilman Lay, we've also, I think, over the years have really pushed on customer service. I know all my colleagues sitting here and past colleagues have always, and administrators have always pushed for customer service, and I know that's really changed because the people that go there now really say, oh my God, I get a pamphlet, I know where I'm going, I know where I can take a shower, do laundry, things like that. So I think there's been a whole sort of experience now down there that maybe wasn't fully developed. So I think we're reaping the benefits of that.
Is there any other discussion?
Just very quick, I agree totally. I mean, the investments that we have made, we are getting the returns, and obviously we need to continue on the path, work with the installation of the marina, making the improvements on the waterfront. I mean, just the boardwalk and the accessibility in the front there. I mean, I look in the morning when I go for my walk, Chris is having a tough time keeping up with the brochures, You go to these things and it's like one day they full, the next day they empty, So that's a sign that folks are coming by, they're picking up the brochures, they're reading through it, and obviously staying informed to what's happening in the town and what's available, so.
Yeah. Yep.
What's your pleasure on this item? We just need to receive and file.
Receive and file.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Now we have the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
I have a lot to talk about, but nothing for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
Well, I have to comment. I have some good and some bad news, all right? So I'm going to first start off that this beautiful town, we've recently been rattled by some sexual abuse allegations by a former councilman. To me, these allegations were extremely disturbing. I know many of you have reached out, and I know many of you who have read the articles or seen the news and everything else could be triggered by any sort of abuse that you have felt. I've been working personally with Lisa Peterson, who is a mental health counselor, and Emily Spence, who is a program manager at the Bristol Warren Family Resource Center, to find a safe space for residents who are affected by some abuse, whether it be verbal or sexual abuse. So please feel free to reach out to me. My number is 401-489-0972. I will personally direct you over to them, and we can get you a referral and help you through this sort of a little bit of disturbing time. And on the positive note, I'll end. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, so enjoy yourself at the Bristol Harbor Festival. Get to the Black Ship Festival. Really enjoy the town. It's going to be a great weekend. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Texera.
Have a good night, all.
Ms. Perella.
I'll be brief. I have a couple of things. One, I didn't pull it, but I just wanted to make note that in HHA, we got CDBG funding for $741,900.
Mary, say that again, please.
$741,935.
Mary, say that one more time.
$741,935 from the Rhode Island Community Development Block Grant Funds. It will cover 3 projects. One would be accessibility improvements at Byfield School, Wood Street neighborhood, streetscape improvements, and some administrative fees. And the administrative is a very small percentage. So I think that's, congratulations, Diane, I think that's terrific. I did notice in here that they also said that there were, it was interesting wording, either there was a Wally School revitalization, and it said regulatory or programmatic concerns. Do you know what those are? Have you not had time to debrief with them?
So this award letter, as part of the CBG application, is I'm sure you guys remember we submitted it. We also submitted for a few other projects.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that they were just trying to say why they didn't accept that project.
Oh, yeah.
I think it had to do with the funding commitment that we had so far for the greater Wally School project that we were discussing a little earlier this year.
Yeah, I'm just curious. No, I think it's great. I think $745,000 is like really, really good. I mean, $741,000, I should say. We'll take it.
See what's happening right here? I don't know if you...
$741,935. So that is good. So we've got to continue looking for grants. We're very successful at that. Thank you guys very much for working on that, Chris and Diane and everyone that has been involved. I have 2 other things just really quickly, partly for the next agenda item, and this would go to Mike. I think it was one of the meetings in July, we talked about looking at an ordinance change in relation to notifying residents within, I think, 250 feet of alcohol change, particularly if it's time closures and so forth. And I was just wondering if you have had any time to work on that yet, and when we might expect to see something.
I'll have a report for you at August 28th, the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other thing, one last thing, and this is, I did mention this, I think, to Steve when I saw him, and I thought about emailing people, but then I think I got, sidetracked with something at work or whatever. A few weeks ago in the local paper, there was the whole article about the, Bank of America building closing, and it ran through the whole history of the Industrial National Bank, and how, that is so tied into Bristol and the founding of that. And while that building is not necessarily historic, I think it was built in maybe the 50s, something like that, the ties to that bank, I think, are worth noting. And so I was thinking about it, and I know we talk often about moving the town hall. I'm not suggesting, we aren't, but we talk about it going up to one of the school buildings. And I thought it would be, that seems to me like a perfect location, right in downtown with parking and everything else. And I don't know if the bank, because this is a huge national bank that we have now, would be interested in somehow preserving that bit of Bristol history through that, and maybe making a donation of the space. I would imagine, I haven't been inside of that, I have not been in that bank in a very long time, but I imagine the layout would be more similar to this layout as it would be then, as opposed to a school building where you'd have various rooms, classrooms for different offices. But I just thought it would be worth maybe looking into and noting, because it just seemed like it looks historic, it has great ties, and it's got parking in its location. So
I like the way you think.
So that's just wanted to put that out there to everyone.
Thank you.
So I hope that people could look into that, is my point of bringing that up, and maybe start a process or give it some thought, or even go see if it's even feasible as far as space is concerned. So that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Lay.
Well, I'd like to thank Tim for his remarks and for all the work that he's been doing to make sure that there's a safe space for assault victims if they need it, because to be quite honest, I was just absolutely horrified when I opened up the newspaper to hear this story. And every day that I wake up, I think about it, because it's just a horrifying thing to think about. This kind of stuff happening in our town, and I know it happens in a lot of towns, but one of the things I think that we saw is that the whole community kind of came together, I noticed, and I'll never know the day that'll come that I'll stop thinking about it, but I know that with time, that kind of stuff my thoughts about this will fade. But I know for some people, those thoughts will never, ever fade. And so I just want to be here to tell any of the victims of any type of abuse that we believe you. And we have resources here, as Councilman Sweeney has already talked about, and we have police resources as well. And we have a very professional police department whose job it is to investigate those types of issues. And so I hope that any victim out there will seek any kind of help, as Councilman Sweeney was talking about, or to reach out to our police if anything comes up. Thank you.
Town Administrator, agenda items?
I'm pleased that Councilwoman Perella mentioned the CDBG grant. That was great news recently. Good job, Chris and Diane. That'll help us with the Rock Street area, Shaw's Lane, Ryan Avenue, and this is phase 2 of the grant we got 6 months ago or so to do St. Elizabeth Street and Congregational and a couple of the other streets. So that down area of Bristol is really going to be looking good shortly. So we're pleased with that. I'd like to say congratulations to the members of the Defiance Hose Company's water battle team, Christian Cunha, Matt Toms, Ryan Cogshell, and the first female firefighter to be on a winning team, Julia Vallaro. And I'd also like to say congratulations to Paul Vallaro Sr. I'm going to guess that he's probably the winning most coach of the water battle teams. Yeah,
Winningest?
Winningest.
Feels right.
And concerts on the Common are continuing throughout the rest of the month. It's Thursday evenings on the Common.
Doesn't the time change this week? Does it change to 6:30, right? 6:30.
Tomorrow, 6:30, Tyler and Ryan. Balcoa. Very popular show, yes. That's all I have. Good night.
Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night, everyone. Thank you.